Grand Rising, Elizabeth.
Grand Rising.
Grand Rising.
Welcome to the Tuesday Health and Wellness Show, where today we're going to discuss a requested topic on how the human body works. And it's a little intensive. How many know how the human body works?
Some parts of it.
Yeah, some parts, yeah.
How about the organs? Do you know about how all the organs work?
No, we
No.
waiting to learn.
No.
I'm trying to gauge where everybody is. You know what I mean? What kind of knowledge
From the beginning.
You know what, Mama Evelyn, I'm right. Yeah, start from 3 years old. We'll say teach us like we're kindergartners.
Right.
I don't know. I didn't design it for
fourth graders.
I tried to do the fourth graders. I did one little nitbit for the fourth graders. Are you smarter than? No, that's a fifth grader, isn't it?
Remember fifth grader.
You smarter than a fifth grader?
Yeah.
Okay, take us to fifth graders.
Well, I can tell you this, that the human body is very complex. And
yes.
to learn about it, it takes more than a notion to learn about the human body. And I know when I went to school for nursing, the class that I took, anatomy and physiology, I hated it. Physiology, I liked more than anatomy, because anatomy, you had to remember the organs and where they were and what they were above and beneath and all of that kind of stuff. And so I didn't like anatomy because I didn't like trying to remember. Like some things are really simple to remember, like the heart, the brain, the kidneys, and all those little things in between, like the gallbladder, the bile duct, and all this little stuff, the intricate parts in it. I found it difficult to memorize. But the human body is, like I said, very intense. And so when I thought about where I was going to start, I kind of like wondered where I should go, with the heart or the brain. So in and of itself, the human body is an interconnected system of organs and tissues working together to maintain life. And so the brain controls and coordinates all the functions by sending signals through the nervous system, while the heart and the lungs circulate oxygen-rich blood to nourish cells and remove waste. Now, the digestive system breaks down food to provide energy, and the liver and kidneys filter toxins and regulate metabolism. The hormones released by endocrine glands help regulate growth, metabolism, and mood. And then we have the biggest organ of the body, which is our skin, that protects the internal organs, muscles, movement, and bone structure and support. So together, these systems work in harmony to keep the body balanced and also to keep the body functional and healthy. So when I decided to start on which one to look at, the brain and the heart was the two that I was like tossing back and forth, because the brain and the heart is the foundational organs to life. And it's easy to relate the heart, and because the heart is crucial, because it pumps the blood throughout all of our bodies, and it removes the waste, and it delivers oxygen and nutrients to all of our cells, and it removes the waste products. But I'm choosing to start with the brain because it's the control center of the body, and it regulates all other organs and systems like breathing and heart rate. So the brain does it all. And like, I don't know if you ever heard of somebody being brain dead. If someone is brain dead, then the body really can't function. Even if the heart is still pumping, it's like, what's the use? If you're brain dead, you know, you're just like lifeless sitting there. So the brain, the anatomy, well, when you talk about the body, human body in and of itself, you need to talk about the anatomy and the physiology. So the anatomy focuses on what the organ is and where it's located. And the brain is a complex organ within the skull. And I'm pretty sure everybody knows that the brain is in the skull. And it's composed of three things, which is the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brain stem. And on the other hand, the physiology is the study of how the structures of the body function and work together to sustain life. It focuses on understanding the biological processes and mechanisms that allow the body and its organs to perform their functions, such as how the heart pumps blood and how the muscles contract themselves, and how the brain processes information, and how the body maintains homeostasis, or it keeps itself healthy. So one way that it does that in the physiology is it controls all body functions, including the sensory processing. So sensory processing is something that I know we're very aware of, like say, for instance, when the kids are young and you see the stove on and they're going to run towards the stove, you don't want them to touch it. But I guarantee you, if they touch it, they're going to take their hand back real fast because their sensory perception is like, that's hot. So the sensory perception is one of the things that helps us know that our nerves are working right. If our nerves weren't working right, our sensory perception wouldn't be good, and you can burn yourself up and get really, really injured really bad. So the sensory perception refers to the ways the nervous system receives and interprets and responds to sensory information. And that can come from either the environment or the body itself. So that means that anything in the environment, like smoke in the environment or smog or whatever is in the environment, chemicals or whatever, can affect our sensory and make us aware of what's going around with the sensory. But the sensory organs are our eyes, ears, skin, nose, tongue. And that's because they detect stimuli. Like we know our tongue detects how food tastes. And our ears, hear, our eyes can see, and our skins feel, and our nose smell. So those are all sensory organs. Light also, sound and pressure, and chemicals and sensations, they are transmitted to the sensory receptors. So the brain processes these signals in the specific areas like visual or sound, causing you to recognize whether it's an object or whether it's a sound, or how cause you to identify the object or the sound. Then based on that interpretation, the brain generates the right response, like like I said before, moving your hand away from a hot surface. So another thing that the physiology does is it's the management of emotions, thoughts, and memory. So emotions, thoughts, and memory, that's really pretty complex in and of itself. I know from working with people injured in motor vehicle accidents, when it deals with emotions, thoughts, and memory, if you get a closed head injury, or, I can say I'm not going to say that for sure, but I know that when you hit your head so many times, it can cause things to happen. And kids, when they're little, they hit their heads a lot of times and they fall. And oh my gosh, I can use an example. My grandson, he used to hit his head so much because he used to run so much. And one time he hit his head so hard, he was sitting there and he was laying there and he was falling asleep. And I was always told, when someone hit their head real hard, don't let them fall asleep. Because you really want to do what they call a neurological assessment to make sure that, they're there, and you want to make sure that they can, follow your hand with their eyes, and you want to make sure that their grips in their hands are good. And you want to, there's an assessment that you do that lets you know how bad that closed head injury was. But one of the things I did not want him to do was to go to sleep, because I thought maybe he wouldn't wake up or something. But emotions, thoughts, and memory, when with my experience working with people with closed head injuries, it's very sad to see someone who has a closed head injury exhibit a lot of things that they didn't do prior to the injury. Like memory is one of the first things that they experience, short-term memory loss. Like young people, I mean, they'll go into a room and they forget why they went in there, or they'll start cooking and they'll go somewhere into another room and they'll just sit down and watch TV and forget they ever was cooking anything. They'll put the clothes in the washing machine and forget they're in the washing machine or the dryer, whatever. It's just little small things they forget. And if someone has a closed head injury that affects the frontal lobe, the executive functioning part of the brain, it really screws them up, because you can be used to getting up in the morning and going to your job. First, let's say you get up in the morning and you're going to take your shower, you brush your teeth, you get dressed, you eat your breakfast, and you're on your way out the door to go to work. Well, somebody with a brain injury, traumatic brain injury, over time, what happens to them is they'll wake up in the morning and they don't know what to do first. They don't know whether to brush their teeth or take a shower or, cook breakfast. And their whole day is thrown off, and they end up losing their job because they forgot all about the fact that they had a job, because the order and sequence in which you do things, that part of the executive function has been damaged. So I'll talk a little bit about each part of the brain and what it does and what it controls. So another physiology thing that it controls is it communicates the rest of the body through the nervous system. And so the nervous system is comprised of the autonomic, the parasympathetic, and the sympathetic nervous system. So there's a relationship between the anatomy and the physiology, where anatomy focuses on the what and where of the body parts, and physiology focuses on the how and why of these parts. But both fields are closely related to each other and often studied together when you're attempting to understand the structure of the body and which part is the anatomy, and which is the anatomy, and it's essential for understanding the function of the physiology. So, like you said, I'll explain it in the first grade. I did Google that, but the anatomy is like learning parts of a toy, okay, or a machine. So you imagine that your body is a big puzzle, and the anatomy is figuring out where all those different pieces go, like your heart, lung, bones, and muscle. Whereas physiology is about understanding how those parts work together, just like learning how a toy or a machine moves and does its job. Physiology is about knowing how your heart pumps blood and how your lung helps you breathe, or how your muscles help you run and play. And so that's a good way of explaining it, because it all works together with your central nervous system. So here's a breakdown of the function of the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem, and how they work and they control activities of the body. Now, the cerebrum is the largest part of the brain. It's divided into two parts, two hemispheres, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. And then it's further broken down into four lobes, which is the frontal, the parietal, the occipital, and the temporal. So the frontal, parietal, the occipital, and the temporal. And the functions of the frontal lobe, it controls voluntary movement, like your motor function. Some people who have MS, they lose their motor function if that part of their brain has a lesion on it and stops them. So that cerebrum part, the brain, the frontal lobe, it controls the voluntary movement, like the motor function. And it also is the decision-making, problem-solving, planning, and emotional regulation. Like I was talking about the executive functioning part, it's that part of the frontal lobe. And it's also involved in speech production. And it says Broca area, but I don't know what that is. So the parietal lobe, it processes sensory information such as touch, temperature, pain, and it's involved in the spatial orientation of the body's awareness. Then we got the occipital lobe, which is responsible for visual processing and interpretation. And then the temporal lobe, it handles auditory processing, language comprehension, memory formation, and emotional responses. So how it works is the cerebellum receives and integrates sensory input from the body and environment, then it processes the information and it sends signals to execute voluntary motor actions. It uses neural networks and neurotransmitters to enable cognitive function, decision-making, and emotional regulation. Now, have you guys ever heard of neurotransmission or neurotransmitters?
Yes.
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 And neurotransmitters, I think I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on, deals with some of the hormones that the brain also produces. So that is how the frontal, parietal, occipital, and the temporal lobe works together. Okay, so the cerebellum is located in the back of the brain beneath the cerebrum, and it's divided into two hemispheres. And the function of that is it coordinates voluntary movements such as your posture and your balance. It helps you stay, coordinated. So it's the balance, the posture and coordination, and the fine motor skills, like being able to pick up something small. And it maintains muscle tone and helps the motor learning new physical skills and movement. And it also integrates input to ensure smooth, accurate movements. So how it works is it receives the sensory input from the spinal cord, because the brain and the spinal cord is related, and other parts of the brain to integrate this information to fine-tune motor activity. It uses feedback loops to adjust the strength, timing, and the force of the muscle contraction for precise movements. So it also stores learned motor patterns, enabling activities like walking, writing, or playing an instrument. And then we have the brain stem, which is the lower extension of the brain, which is connected to the spinal cord. So you got the brain, and then you got the stem. The stem is connected to the spinal cord, which consists of three parts. And the three parts are called the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. I don't even know how to say that right. Medulla oblongata. You didn't know that, it was so many parts of the brain. It's a lot of parts of the brain. So the midbrain, it controls your eye movement. So if your eyes are moving good, if they're not moving good, then there's something wrong with your midbrain. It also controls auditory and visual reflexes. Like if something is getting ready to fly in your eyes and do like that, it controls those reflexes. And it's also involved in arousal and alertness. So it keeps you alert. It's almost like that fight or flight thing. And the pons, it regulates breathing, sleep, and relays signals between the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the spinal cord. So that's pretty deep. So if your breathing is not right and you're not sleeping right and different stuff like that, there may be something going on with that part of the brain. And the medulla oblongata, it controls vital voluntary functions such as the heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, swallowing, and digestion. Now that's all important. So how does it work? Okay, the brain stem, it serves as a pathway for neural signals between the brain and the body. It manages autonomic functions and involuntary actions critical for survival by regulating vital processes like breathing and heart rate. Now, when they say autonomic functions, autonomic basically means it's going to happen automatically. It's supposed to happen automatically. So that's what the brainstem does. It also acts as a relay station, transmitting sensory and motor signals to and from the spinal cord and higher brain regions. So in summary, the cerebrum controls the higher cognitive function, voluntary action, and sensory perception, while the cerebellum coordinates motor control, balance, and fine motor skills. And the brainstem manages basic life sustaining functions and serves as a communication hub between the brain and the body. So together, all these parts of the brain work together to integrate sensory information, coordinate responses, regulate autonomic functions, and enable cognition and consciousness. Now, we have some hormones that are regulated through some things that are in the brain. And I know as women, we all know what this hormone is. How many know what oxytocin is? No? Oh,
Isn't that the eyes?
oxytocin.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm gonna say what it is, and I bet you might remember. It's produced by the hypothalamus, and it maintains homeostasis, like body temperature, hunger, thirst, sleep, wake, hormone production, emotions, behavior, heart rate, and blood pressure. But it's released by the pituitary gland, and it's involved in social bonding, childbirth, and lactation.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys,
It's the feel good hormone.
the hormone.
It's the feel good.
So have you ever heard of somebody who are pregnant and they're due to have their baby and they're late and they have to induce labor?
Yeah, I heard of that. Yeah. I don't know anybody.
Okay, so whenever they have to induce labor on someone whose baby is not coming like it's supposed to come, they give them oxytocin. And oxytocin causes the uterus to contract. So that's one of the things that it does. And so oxytocin is a hormone that us as women already have in our body. That's why it says it's there with social bonding, childbirth, and lactation. And I think that if the oxytocin levels aren't where they are, I know you guys heard of where when a mother doesn't bond with their child, they get depressed and different stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Those hormones are unbalanced. So that's one of the hormones that is produced in the hypothalamus but released by the pituitary gland. So the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland are both located in the brain. So the hypothalamus is a small region at the base of the brain, just above the pituitary gland. It's part of the brain's diencephalon, which is integral for sensory and motor signals. And it also regulates the autonomic and the endocrine function. But it sits below the thalamus, which is responsible for consciousness, alert, and sleep. The hypothalamus is also responsible for regulating many body functions like hunger, thirst, body temperature, emotions, and it also controls the pituitary gland. Now, the pituitary gland is what is considered the master gland of the body. It's small and it's like the size of a pea, and it's located below the hypothalamus at the base of the brain, and it sits on a bony structure called the sulla turcica, which is basically part of the skull. So it's like, the skull is already hard, then this is connected to the skull like a hard bony piece too, and that pituitary gland sits in there. And the pituitary gland releases hormones that control other glands in the body and various body functions. Hold on. So another hormone it produces is called vasopressin. And that's the anti-diuretic hormone. They call it ADH. And so when that is out of whack, if that hormone, that anti-diuretic hormone is not working, the water balance in your body is not regulated. So what that does is it regulates the body's water balance by controlling water reabsorption in the kidneys. And that's why sometimes when people who have chronic kidney failure going into like dialysis or something, that part of their body is not working as well. The reabsorption is not there. And The antidiuretic hormone, like I said, is another one of those hormones. And who would have thought melatonin was one of those hormones also that is produced in the by the pituitary gland?
Mhm.
No, it's produced by the pineal gland, and it regulates the sleep and wake cycles. And a lot of people have to take melatonin to get some sleep because they don't have enough melatonin. I know I tried it because I had a sleep problem. You know, I didn't have much of a problem falling asleep, but a problem staying asleep. And they say you're supposed to get X amount of hours of sleep a day. And so I thought maybe I'd try some melatonin. Melatonin never worked for me. How many have tried melatonin and it's actually worked for them?
Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
One of the things that's natural, pistachios. You could just eat 7 or 8 pistachios and that would help you sleep. And that has melatonin in it.
Melatonin, yeah. Okay.
And it works for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm gonna try it because I need it.
You'll
My
sleep
sleep
better.
is a lot better than it used to be. It used to didn't be that great. I used to only get like 4 or 5 hours. Now I'm averaging at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep, which is good. So I don't know what happened with my melatonin level being increased or what it was even that I did, but my sleep is much, much better because it regulates the sleep and wake. Like I said, I don't have problems falling asleep, I just have problems staying asleep because I'll be wanting like 8 hours. Sometimes I'm like, you never go to bed the night before and you say, I'm sleeping in. And then the next morning you be like, what? I want to sleep in. Try to go back to sleep and you can't go back to sleep. So you say, forget it. That melatonin ain't working right or something. And then another hormone is called endorphins. You heard of endorphins, right? It's also released by the pituitary gland, and it acts as a natural painkiller and a mood enhancer. So yeah, endorphins, natural painkiller. I was in so much pain in my back yesterday. The natural painkiller was not kicking in. It was not kicking in. It was like the muscles around my spine. I have right there in the center of my back. Call it degenerative joint disease. And so that is right in the part of your spine that's called the thoracic spine, because you have the brain, and then you have the cervical spine, the thoracic spine, and then you have the lumbar spine, and then you have the sacrum. And all of that is part of the central nervous system in that spine area. And right there in the center in the thoracic spine, I have what they call degenerative joint disease, and haven't had problems with it for a long, long time. And all of a sudden, my back started hurting, and you have to go like this because the muscles around it was too loose. And so the doctor recommended that I tighten those muscles around it to secure it so that it wouldn't hurt anymore. And when I did that, it worked. It actually worked. But I went like 10 years without experiencing that. And all of a sudden last night, here it come again. And I'm like, what is this? Why has it come back? But I think what happened was I was lifting weights and I kept going up and down with the weights. And the up and down movement back there must have did something. Must have been a little bit too much for me or something. But anyway, like I said, the natural painkillers did not kick in. I had to take a muscle relaxer to relax those muscles. So the pituitary gland produces several hormones that regulate various functions of the body. It is divided into 2 parts. We have the anterior pituitary, which is in the front, and then we have the posterior pituitary, which is in the back. And each part produces different hormones, okay? So the anterior pituitary hormones produces and release the following hormones. Growth hormone. So that's responsible for growth and development. It stimulates bone growth, it stimulates tissue growth, and it regulates your metabolism by helping control how the body uses fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. That's interesting. And so the growth hormone is responsible for that. And then I know you guys heard of the thyroid stimulating hormone, or the THS. That stimulates the thyroid gland and produces thyroid hormones, the T3 and T4. So anybody that has a thyroid problem, those are some of the tests that the doctors run on you to see if your thyroid is functioning right. The T3 and T4 and thyroid levels, because it regulates metabolism, your energy levels, and your growth. And a lot of people experience a lot of different symptoms, whether your thyroid is too high or too low. And so it seems like it has I haven't studied it much, but it seems like when it's too high, you might lose weight. And if it's too low, you might gain weight. And it's just the opposite. It seems like the opposite on both ends on what the thyroid does. And if the thyroid stimulating hormone, if you're not getting enough or you're getting too much, you're going to have some kind of dysfunction in your body. Some people get goiters in their necks. Some people, when their thyroid is messed up, have you ever seen people that have their eyes kind of stick out?
Yeah.
Yeah. So some people have some serious issues, and it also can cause thyroid cancer. And I've known someone who actually had thyroid cancer. My mom and my grandmom, they always had to take a thyroid pill. And my grandmother used to always tell me when I was younger, get your thyroid checked. And every time I got it checked, it was always normal. But my mom and my grandmom, theirs was always low. So they had to take something for theirs, this levothyroxine or something like that. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that. So then there's another one that the anterior pituitary hormone produces. It's called adrenocorticotropic. Okay, so I got to slow down on this one. Adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH. And it stimulates the adrenal glands to produce cortisol. I know y'all heard of cortisol. That cortisol. It's a hormone that helps the body respond to stress and regulates metabolism, blood pressure, and immune response. And the cortisol one is tricky. For me, I know that I went to the doctor to have my cortisol levels checked, and my cortisol levels were fine. However, cortisol levels is tricky in that 1 minute it can be fine because you relaxed and you chilling, and the next minute it can be high because you just went into a stress mode. So it goes up and down, up and down. And when you're in a lot of stress, your cortisol levels will raise. And so, because it's regulated by stress and your metabolism, so, and your blood pressure. So, you know, if you get real stressed, your blood pressure can go up. A lot of mechanisms can go on and happen in your body at the same time. And while that's going on, those hormones are being up and down, up and down. So I know you guys heard of this one, prolactin.
Pro what?
Yeah, prolactin. Come on, mommies.
I was thinking it has to do with breasts.
There we go.
It has to do with milk.
Because you know, when they say the mother is breastfeeding, or they'll say she's lactating or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Like lactating. So prolactin, it promotes milk production. So that is the hormone that promotes the milk to come in after you have the baby.
Oh, okay.
And in breastfeeding women, you know, that's if you start breastfeeding. Now, if you don't start breastfeeding, it's not gonna happen, because you know that once you stop breastfeeding, it just stops happening. But right after you have the baby, it's ready for you to lactate and start feeding the baby and producing this production of milk. And it plays a role in productive health and metabolism as well. I remember when I was younger, they say, yeah, go ahead and breastfeed your baby, because while you're breastfeeding it, actually what it does is it stimulates the muscle of the uterus, contracting the uterus to make your uterus go down while you're breastfeeding the baby. And they used to always say, because it is connected with the metabolism, that while you're breastfeeding, it causes you to lose weight quicker than someone who doesn't breastfeed. So,
You have a question?
I do. I had it was a kind of a question, a statement, a question. You're right about what you just said, but none of that was told to me until after I had my first and only child. And I was so pissed because it also said breastfeeding, and I learned all this when I went back to school for my master's degree and I had to do a project
Mhm.
on, I forgot the name of it, but it's the word, what you said, lactation.
Lactation.
Lactation. It was, there's this group called the Lalique League,
Mhm.
and they're lactation specialists and they're breastfeeders, and they promote breastfeeding for those
Mhm.
reasons you just said. And
Mhm.
another reason is also that the child that you're breastfeeding has less sickness,
Yes.
less earaches. And
Mhm.
when I found out about this, I'm like, nobody
Mhm.
told me, because my son had earaches all the time.
Aw.
And the only thing that was, and I'm like, I had a mom, I had
Mhm.
4 sisters who all had children. Nobody said anything to me about breastfeeding. The
Mhm.
only thing that was said to me is breastfeeding is after I had the child, I was in the hospital and the nurse said, are you going to breastfeed or are you going to bottle feed? And of
Mhm.
course, I said bottle feed because at the time I was on Focus Hope and they had been sending me bottled milk, the canned formula. They've been
Yeah.
sending me formula since I was like 5 months pregnant. So I had
Mhm.
all this stocked in pantry. I'm like, oh yeah, bottle feed. It wasn't even a thought. And she said, really? You don't want to breastfeed? And I was like,
Mhm.
no. Like, why?
Mhm.
Why would I? I didn't know
Mhm.
anything about the benefits. And she
Uh-huh.
said, well, just try it. So she tried it. He wouldn't latch on. And then, oh, well, that was it. But
Yeah.
after I found out those, I became a promoter of breastfeed. So I told all my nieces and everybody, know you should breastfeed. It'll retract your uterus. You'll get, you lose weight, you'll get back to your normal weight, and the baby
Mhm.
will be less. You won't have any earaches. You won't have any sickness. So
Yeah.
that's a great. But that's the legally. I learned all that
Mhm.
after I had my child. And I'm saying I'm not going to do it again just to breastfeed. So.
Tried it.
Thank God for bonus kids, husband, when you get married and have bonus kids.
Right. Right. Yeah. So another one that the anterior pituitary hormone or the pituitary does is called follicle stimulating hormone. We heard of that one, right? FHH. Okay, so it's in women. It stimulates the growth and the maturation of the ovaries or the follicles of the ovaries, the eggs. It produces that. But in men, it stimulates the production of the testes.
Oh,
And I believe that's the testosterone.
I knew it was something I wanted to ask you about the whatever, lactate or whatever.
Prolactin.
Yeah, because when my son was born, there was a time when I had to squeeze his breast for the milk to come out. What was that?
Oh, and his breast?
Yeah, when he
Oh,
was born.
I
Yeah,
heard
he
of
just
that.
started
Okay.
getting little.
Mhm. I don't know why that is in boys sometimes, but it goes away. It's a little nodule in there. And I don't know, I can't explain that, but I know that which one is it? Okay, so when you have a baby, you got the chromosomes, a X and a Y. A X and a Y is a boy, right? And 2X's is a girl. And so either way it goes, in a boy or a girl, we all have testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
We all have that follicle stimulating hormone, but they do different stuff in different, the male or the female. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but all I know is I learned that it does go away. That it's just a little nodule in there. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
little baby breast. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't have to do that for my son. I don't know, but I do remember, like saying, just to say how unnatural this whole thing. You're talking about the the prolactin. Prolactin is a natural thing, but to stop it, because I told them I wasn't going to breastfeed, they gave me pills to dry up my milk,
Yeah,
and that was, to me, was like so unnatural.
it
I'm
was.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got milk, should I just pump it maybe for somebody else who need it or something? I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna, but it just seemed like
And it's
And if
amazing
you
how
didn't,
the milk will go on for a long time.
right, but if you stop it with that medication, you
Mhm.
know, it just felt I just felt like, gosh, I'm stopping the flow of nature. I'm stopping, you
Mhm.
know, what's really supposed to be happening to my body, but I
But
got this
your son was supposed to be
drinking it.
naturally taking
Exactly.
that in. They didn't tell you that part, right?
They didn't tell me that part. Nobody told me. And I went that whole speeding him that old stupid dumb focus hope formula when he could have been having the natural and the bonding part too.
Bonding.
That
Yes.
we
Mhm.
missed
Yeah,
that.
because they just look, well, you still got that.
We did
There's a
get it,
different
but
bonding.
a different bonding.
It's
But
a bit different
it's just
bonding.
so many benefits of breastfeeding, and
Yes.
so I'm
Mhm.
glad you brought that up. And
Because I was thinking about just recently how with my son, I breastfed him maybe September, October, November, December, 4 months.
Mhm.
And he didn't do a lot of hospital stuff. He wasn't sick a lot.
no, I guess
Mhm.
not.
I can't remember too many colds. I can't
Mhm.
remember too many, and it's supposed to help all of that,
Mhm.
in the baby.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I don't remember, he wasn't a sick kid.
Mhm.
It's that
Yeah.
breast milk.
Mentally, he kind of off, but that was from falling down that flight of steps,
Mhm.
anyway.
Yeah, that's that hitting that head closed injury stuff. Those hormones get thrown off too when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's another one that women produce, and it's called a luteinizing hormone, and it triggers ovulation.
Hmm.
Yeah, go figure. It releases the egg from the ovary, and then it stimulates the production of progesterone. So yeah.
So when you have a hysterectomy, your ovaries, also all of that is removed, all of that is inside, all those different
The
hormones.
luteinizing hormone is there, yeah. Sometimes when people have a hysterectomy, they give them estrogen. And so I
Yeah.
don't know if I don't know if people ever got progesterone after a hysterectomy, but a lot of doctors way back when my mom was having us, when she had a hysterectomy, they gave her estrogen. But then over time, they were saying that it wasn't necessary as long as you still had your because she got her uterus, the uterus taken out, but not the ovaries in and of itself. You know what I mean? So I don't think she had to have it after that, but there was a study done on it that said that you don't really need to give women estrogen after they have a hysterectomy. So I don't know if they still practice that now or not. But yeah, if you have some part of your body removed that produces any kind of hormone, there's definitely going to be a deficit somewhere. Whether or not you feel symptoms from it or not, I don't know.
And I would suppose every woman is different as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What they
And so,
experience.
yeah. And I've never heard anybody complain of that, like they got their tubes tied or anything like that. You know, I don't know. But anyway, in the luteinizing hormone in men, it stimulates the production of testosterone in the testes. And so sometimes if men are low on testosterone, they can't have a baby. They don't have enough testosterone or something in the sperm cells or whatever. And then there's the last one in the anterior pituitary. The last hormone is called a melanocyte stimulating hormone, and it influences skin pigmentation. By stimulating melanocytes, the cell that produces melanin in the skin pigment. So that's what that one does. It produces melanin in the skin. And as you know, some people have more melanin than others, or all different colors. Look at all of us, how many different colors we are here.
I know.
Yeah.
Color girls in the
Yeah.
house.
A beautiful hue of rainbowness.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Right.
Yeah. So then we have the posterior pituitary hormones that's in the back. And that we talked about this one, the oxytocin, that stimulates uterine contraction. Remember I was saying, if you don't have the baby, they'll give you some oxytocin to make you go into labor. That's one of them. And we already talked about the production of the milk from the breast and the bonding and the emotional connection. And then the antidiuretic hormone, which is called vasopressin. And I think there's some high blood pressure medications out there called vasopressin, because there are high blood pressure medications that they give you that are antidiuretic or a diuretic. So we have an antidiuretic hormone, and if it's not working right, I don't know. It helps regulate the kidney and manage the amount of water that the body produces. So when it regulates water balance, it does it by reducing the amount of water excreted in urine, which helps maintain blood pressure. So if you hold on to a lot of water in your body, that can make your blood pressure go up, because the blood circulates through the whole body. And by it circulating through the whole body, if you got a lot of water in your lower extremities, that water will press up against your veins, causing your veins to constrict. And whenever your veins constrict, that causes your blood pressure to go up. So you want to always make sure that you're not holding on to water. And one way you can test and see if you're holding on to water is you can do what they call, it's a test that you do on your skin, and you can take a couple fingers and you press it in like that. And you see how my skin bounced back like that? Well, if you do this to your skin, and you see how my hands are indented in here, if you do this to your skin, and this is in the lower extremities, you don't test it in the upper extremity, you test it in the lower legs. You test it like that, and if you move it and you still see those two fingerprints, it's called pitting edema. And pitting edema is a clear indication that you're holding on to a lot of water in your body, and your blood pressure will go up. And if your blood pressure goes up, I mean, you at high risk for heart attack, stroke, and different stuff like that. And that's mostly seen in someone with kidney problems. If your kidneys are not working right because of any ailment that you might have, like chronic kidney failure or acute kidney problems. Sometimes people have acute kidney problems from not drinking enough water, and then your body starts to hold on to the water. But if you, that's one way you can test and see if your body is holding on to too much water in your lower extremities. And the antidiuretic hormone is supposed to help the kidney manage the amount of water in the body. But if it's not managing, that's why they give people a diuretic, to get rid of the water out of the body.
Stacy, we have a hand up. Karen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Amazing, Karen.
Oh, no, you don't have to be, oh, sorry, I was gonna wait till you finish. I was gonna ask you, but what he said, the epidemia, what did you call it?
Pitting, like a pit, pitting, edema. Edema means swelling.
So when I was pregnant, I had toxedema. It's the same thing with my feet, toxemia. Because they did that thing to what you said with this thing with my feet, and it didn't bounce up. You know, I had toxemia. And I'm like, what is that? And so they gave me pills for that too. I'm like, I just all these pills. I was just like, oh,
right.
All these pills when you're pregnant. I'm just like, can we just be natural? But so what's the difference between toxemia, my question, and pitedema?
Toxemia is it's some toxic. Let me do this really quick. Because
it was the same kind of test they used, but it was just on my feet, and all the swelling was, you know, in the lower extremities, like you said.
Toxemia is something about the blood. Oh, okay. It causes swelling in the hands and feet. And it has something to do with the liver and kidney. Okay, toxemia is known as preeclampsia in pregnancy, and it refers to a condition where the toxins or harmful substances.
Oh, okay, so it's just for pregnancy. But what you were talking about could be any time. It's not just during pregnancy.
No, what you had was just for pregnancy only.
Oh, okay.
That happens in
pregnancy. You're talking about we need to check all the time.
So people who have chronic kidney failure or something going on with their kidneys, and their kidneys aren't able to regulate the water that's in their bodies, and if they eat too much salt or something like that, their bodies hold on to the water, and you can see it in the legs. And when you see it in the legs, if you press down on the skin, you can tell whether or not they have pitting edema. Now, sometimes you can have edema and not be pitting. You can have, like, my arm could be like swollen with water, but it may not pit. But the pitting edema is the worst edema, because then you know that you got so much water in there that it's pressing up against your veins. And if it presses up against your veins, it's going to vasoconstrict. Vaso meaning veins. It's going to constrict the veins, and it's going to cause the, because when the blood flows back to the heart, it needs to flow easy. But if you got something stopping it, it's going to be resistant. And when it resists, your blood pressure is going to go up. And so you have to take an antidiuretic or some blood pressure pills. You got to take something to get that water out of your system. Because one thing most people do to get it out of their system is they'll put these Ted hose on. You heard of those Ted hose that you put on your feet? There's really tight stockings you put on your legs. And it constricts the legs, and it causes, and then when you put those stockings on and you lay down and you put your legs up, it causes the blood to flow back to your heart, or the water to flow back to your heart. And so once it flows back to your heart, in that flowing, while it's flowing back to your heart, it's also flowing back to your kidneys. And then if your kidneys will make it go into your bladder, and you urinate it out. So the goal is to reduce the vasoconstriction, so it vasodilates. And when it vasodilates, it's not constricted anymore. It's going to flow better, and then it'll get to your kidneys and to your bladder, so you can urinate it out. And that's the thing. Once you urinate it out, more urinating out, it causes the blood pressure to go down, causes the swelling to go down, and yeah. So
We have another question from Barbara.
Go ahead.
Barbara Woodard.
Barbara, go.
I see her.
Oh, there she is.
Oh, all right.
I with one of my pregnancies, I also had toxemia, and with my second child, a boy, and they also had to induce my labor. And what they did, they didn't give me a pill or anything. They wanted to, he was so big, they wanted to draw water from around him. And when they stuck the needle in my stomach, they drew blood and pulled it out really fast. And I went directly into labor.
Really?
Behind that, yeah.
Wow, I never heard of that one.
Yeah. Crittenton Hospital.
So they took some fluid. Did you have too much fluid?
And I don't know. I know he was too big, and then they had to use forceps to pull him out.
Yeah. How much did he weigh?
10 pounds.
Whoa.
And 10 pounds and some ounces. He looked, when he pulled him out, he looked like he was 2 months old.
Yeah.
He was full. And then the next day, when they brought him to me, he was all shriveled up. So I guess he had water.
Oh, so he had a lot of water in his system too.
Obviously, yeah, because he didn't look the same. When they showed him to me after birth, the next day they showed him to me, and he, wasn't as full.
Oh, wow.
He wasn't a full fat baby.
So he peed it out.
Something. Yes.
Wow.
I just wanted to share
I know
that.
babies lose weight, maybe a couple of ounces or something after they're born. But for him to not look like he looked when he came out, that must have been some of the
You got the right baby, right?
Yeah, he looked like himself. Yeah.
Okay.
That part. That movie, they got switched at birth. That movie.
No, it was the right baby.
God. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So I'm gonna just sum it up on the pituitary gland. It is critical. It's a critical gland that releases hormones to regulate growth, metabolism, reproduction, stress response, and other essential functions in the body. It acts as the master gland because it controls the activity of many of the endocrine glands. So yeah, that's the anterior and posterior hormones. So next time, maybe we can get into talking about the central nervous system and how the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord is connected, and how it works to regulate, or how it helps every other organ in the body. Because if you have things going on in the brain and in the spinal cord, there's no connectivity, there's no neurotransmitters, and things can go wrong. And that's how people determine, or that's how diagnoses are made on the brain and the spinal cord, depending on what's going on up and down that cord. Like if you have an injury, and or if you have some kind of ailment or disease that's on the spinal cord that causes things to not connect to body organs and parts of your body to make them work the way they're supposed to work. Yeah.
All right.
So any other questions?
We got 3 minutes. Partner, Deitra, you want to say something, Sister Deitra?
Well, I truly appreciate what you shared, Stacy. It was very informative, and it was very, very wide, good knowledge, because you covered a lot of areas. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Like I said, anatomy and physiology. Anatomy wasn't one of mine, but I'm learning to like it more. You know,
It's
more.
important.
Yeah, because if you don't know where stuff is located, like that's how doctors actually do diagnoses. You go into the in the hospital or the emergency room and you say, "Oh, I got a pain over here." Well, if they know what's over here, they're gonna figure out what's happening over there.
Right.
Over here, you know, depending on where the pain is and how you describe the pain, that's typically how they start drawing blood work to look at what's really going on in your body and try to determine what, you know, what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I know with my twin sister, that's how they found out she had multiple sclerosis. They did brain scans and MRI of the brain and the spinal cord, and they saw lesions, you know. And it was just certain things that was happening to her that she could not explain. And then when she went to a neurologist and told him her symptoms, they were able to tell her what was going on with her. And based on the lesions that she had on her brain, it determined what part of her body was going to work and what wasn't going to work, you know. Because that central spinal, that system just regulates everything in your body.
Yes.
Yeah.
How is she
We're
doing?
almost there, and I'm glad you came on camera for wealthy women. What we got up tomorrow, boo? I'm talking to Lakeisha. Uh-oh, her camera froze. Your camera froze, honey. Lakeisha, can you hear me? Yeah, you on mute.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Any instructions we should have, or?
Now I have an exciting guest. His name is Scott Black, or Scotty Black, and he is amazing. So he's gonna come and share his experience, and he has products in stores, so it's gonna be really interesting.
Wonderful.
Oh, nice.
So
Yeah.
get your butts on at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
We got company coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I have
All right, Stacy, you want to close us out, boo?
Yes, everybody, let's give ourselves a hug.
Good show.
Nice hug. I deserve a hug today. And let's hug the world.
Yes, the world needs it. Oh my goodness.
Amazing hug.
Awesome show. Awesome show. Thank you, Tracy.
good.
Let's sprinkle it all over the world to everybody.
Say.
Okay.
Peace out. Love you. Good seeing you, Miss Amazing Woman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got to get something for the inauguration. I need to go.
Everybody needs to go. Yeah, we're working on some trips for that. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna actually be in DC next week for 2 weeks, so I'll be, scoping out.
Inauguration, I would love to go to something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, when for Harris?
yes.
Oh, women, oh,
Yes, yes.
We gotta go with our pearls and our kicks, and yeah, we do. And I'm also a little plug. I'm putting the information out for my May baby's birthday. Y'all know I celebrate my birthday all month last year. Well, this year. Next year I'm doing a May baby's birthday cruise. So anybody birthday in May, I'm inviting them to go on a cruise with me to the ABC Islands. And if your birthday is in May, you will receive a birthday gift from Rush Travels and Adventures, who is sponsoring the May Babies cruise to the ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao.
wow.
See what I birthed in May. I know I
Look, when I birthed
something.
in May.
Yes, birth something in May.
Right, I got
birthed.
Elizabeth. We all birthed this in May, remember?
There you
Yeah,
go.
we all
It's
going.
Elizabeth's birthday. We all
We qualify.
awesome.
We all had our baby in May.
Yes. That's awesome.
Grandbaby or something.
Something. Something was born. All right. Love you all.
Love you
Peace
too.
out.
Bye.